Asbestos, the nation's silent killer. Every day, at least 27 Americans die from an asbestos-related illness. Asbestos exposure usually occurs by breathing contaminated air in workplaces that make or use asbestos. People exposed are at serious risk of developing mesothelioma, asbestosis, and other forms of cancer. Approximately 3,000 cases of mesothelioma are diagnosed in the U.S. each year. Current trends indicate that number will likely continue to increase throughout the next decade. Asbestos is quickly becoming America's forgotten epidemic. Asbestos is a naturally occurring fibrous material which can only be identified by using a microscope. Left in place, they are relatively harmless, but once airborne, asbestos fibers damage the lungs and the membrane that surrounds the lungs. Mined all over the world, asbestos was first used by the Greeks over 2,000 years ago. Asbestos is a strong, durable, yet flexible fiber that was commonly used for decades in the building of homes, schools, and office buildings. Because of its unique heat insulation and fire retardant qualities, ironically, asbestos was initially seen as a lifesaver. Then, around the turn of the 20th century, medical researchers linked the material to an alarming number of lung-related deaths in asbestos mining towns. Despite this link, industries continued to produce and use asbestos regularly. It wasn't until 1929 that the first legal action was taken against asbestos manufacturers. After several studies conducted during the 1970s, asbestos-related lawsuits became more prevalent, prompting the Environmental Protection Agency and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to regulate the U.S. asbestos industry, ultimately barring the use of asbestos in building materials. But the damage was done. The 1960s and 70s are seen as the peak of asbestos manufacturing and usage. And since it may take anywhere from 10 to 50 years for an asbestos victim to show any signs of mesothelioma, many people exposed decades ago are just now developing the disease. Navy ships built from the 1930s to the mid-1970s used asbestos in numerous components. This has resulted in many recent cases of mesothelioma diagnosed for Navy personnel as well as civilian shipyard workers. In fact, of the 4,000 Americans diagnosed with mesothelioma every year, about a third were exposed in the Navy or in Navy shipyards. Mesothelioma is a form of cancer that attacks the lining of the organs of the body. Shortness of breath, cough, and pain in the chest due to an accumulation of fluid in the pleural space are often symptoms of pleural mesothelioma. Symptoms of peritoneal mesothelioma include weight loss, abdominal swelling and pain due to a buildup of fluid in the abdominal cavity. Conventional therapies have not proved successful, and patients diagnosed with the disease have a likely survival time of only 6 to 12 months. Many victims may not know how or when they were exposed to asbestos until a lawyer conducts an extensive asbestos exposure investigation. For decades now, negligent companies have knowingly exposed their employees to asbestos, radically increasing their chance of developing mesothelioma. Most of these cases of mesothelioma and other asbestos cancers could and should have been prevented. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma or any asbestos-related disease, you are not alone. You have options. And more importantly, you have a voice. Seeking legal compensation from these companies responsible for knowingly exposing their employees to asbestos is your right. With trial lawyers experienced in asbestos-related cases on your side, you can rebuild your future.